Hello and welcome to Love and the Planets. And today we're talking about the new moon, the January new moon in Capricorn, which is also partial solar eclipse in relationships. And I am Margaret Gray in Dublin, Ireland.
And I'm Armand Diaz on Long Island, New York.
And before we forget, please, just a quick reminder, we'd love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we would love you to hit like also on our YouTube videos if you enjoy them. Now, today we're doing something a little different, aren't we, Armand? We're going to leave the astrological part of it all to the very end. And we're really just going to address what these energies feel like in very plain English in relationships. So let's start with, what's your overall feeling about how this might affect, relationships overall, Armand?
My sense of it is that this is a time when we're liable to be pulled towards doing things that have not much to do with relationship. This is a time when we might be very much into business or work. Probably it's that sort of beginning of the new year thing too. It's like, getting a fresh start. A little bit of that feeling is kind of the big thing right now. And I think that in a certain way that might be kind of a mistake. I have this vision of this eclipse being the kind of thing of like, maybe when it is, maybe when your child's recital, but you kind of are late for it or can't go because you're working late, or maybe, your partner's crying out for a little attention and, you're busy reading the paper or, getting prepared for tomorrow or something like that, where you're not really being fully present for a relationship because you're sort of being dragged into more mundane, practical stuff. I'm feeling that could be sort of the danger of this eclipse.
Well, it is kind of, there's an energy of duty and obligation a little bit around, isn't there, and hard work. So I think that's what kind of you're really saying, that those kind of duties or whatever might pull us away from the kind of lighter side of relationship. And I think, we've been writing in our blogs on Facebook for the past week or so, really, that there are pretty big changes afoot generally. And those changes are certainly going to impact our relationships as well, of course. And so I think we're feeling that already. And eclipses are traditionally about endings, particularly solar eclipses, even though it's a new moon. So at times a new moon, we talk about planting new seeds. But when there's an eclipse, there's something about also really letting go of something. So I think there is a feeling of that around this. What are we letting go in our relationships? And it might be that part of what we're letting go is really letting go of something in order to find maybe a better balance between what's in our personal life and what's in our relationship life. And that may require a little bit of work, which we don't like to associate with relationships, but actually relationships need commitment and need a lot of hard work. So this is possibly a reminder of that at this time.
Also, I think we're pulled, if we can manage it, we're pulled towards understanding where our comfort zone is, where our safety zone is, and putting more emphasis there, not necessarily in an overprotective, circling the wagons, keeping others out, building fences or walls or anything like that kind of way, but rather the sort of sense of like, where do I feel comfortable? Where do I belong? Where is my tribe, to use the somewhat overused expression, but that type of thing, where do I really fit in? Where do I really find comfort?
Also, what are my boundaries? And that's another thing we don't often talk about in relationships, but yet it's so important in terms of where do I end and where does somebody else start? And that's in all our relationships, whether they're work relationships, whether they're personal relationships. And it's so much easier often to set those up with more impersonal relationships. But yet in our one-to-one relationships on a daily basis, it isn't always so easy. So this feels like a time where we're really assessing, are we comfortable with our boundaries? Are we comfortable? Are we good at saying no to people? If people ask us a lot of favors, are we good at saying no? So it's really a start of the year where we're really kind of putting down a little bit of kind of gentle fences for self-protection. But there's also another aspect to this that I think is kind of interesting. There's also maybe a kind of contemplation of how do we manifest unconditional love. So I think on that more romantic side, but also general love in terms of people around us, what do I have to do to create that? Because that also, there's the myth of that just happens and it's magical or whatever. But maybe we need to put in some foundation stones, and this might be a very good time to do that.
It is a time to put in those foundation stones. I don't know, as a fire sign, maybe you can relate a little bit. The thing about putting down foundation stones is that it's the beginning of a project. It takes time to get anywhere with it. You don't always feel like you're making progress when you're laying the foundation, It's when you're building the third story, it's like, okay, now we're getting someplace. And I think that there is a little bit of impatience, and there is a sense of impatience. We also have, I think we're getting to a point after this eclipse where things are going to move a little bit more swiftly. I think things are going to sort of, probably, if you've been feeling stuck for the last few weeks, last few months, the 2018,
Yes.
any of those, I think that we may almost sort of feel like we're lurching forward quickly as we get into next week and beyond. It's good to lay the foundation stones now, even if you're not seeing, dramatic progress right away.
Probably it's a kind of good eclipse to really spend a little bit of time alone, maybe meditating, some time in nature, greenery, something solid, the earth, because it has a very earthy feel about it. So really to focus on our roots, our kind of grounding, it's a good opportunity to really feel that grounding energy. And probably not a very social time, so don't be surprised if you don't feel like socializing a huge amount around this time with this weekend. But really, as we said, really to put in some foundations, and also maybe some letting go of whatever you haven't let go of from 2018. This is kind of a good opportunity to do that, because that's what eclipses do. They eclipse certain things out of our life, whatever we don't really need anymore.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of us are emotional pack rats, and it's like we're kind of hoarders, and you never know when you're going to need this feeling again. It may come in handy someday. It could be really good to get rid of stuff consciously. When you consciously make, there's one of the things I remember. A meditation class with Jack Cornfield, and he said, how do you let go? He goes, you let go. The emotional letting go is no different than what you do with your hand. You decide you're going to do it, and then you let go. It doesn't mean that, and letting go doesn't mean that it's never going to hurt again. It doesn't mean, or that it's never going to feel good again or anything like that. It's not like, it doesn't mean that, that it doesn't kill that experience for you. Is the point. It doesn't kill that experience for you. It just sort of, it just sort of takes away that grasping at it. Just because you shake the sand out of your shoe doesn't mean that you haven't been to the beach. You don't have to walk around with that stuff in there.
That's a lovely way of putting it, Armand. It kind of reminds me also of, there's a lot of kindness, loving kindness meditations. There's certainly a lot of them online. And this might be a good time to do something like that, for that self-compassion whilst you're letting go, as you say, of the sand. And because there could be a little bit of a harshness around this energy. So to do whatever feels kind and compassionate for yourself. And just to be aware that, just to talk a little bit about the astrology briefly, that this is, of course, a new moon in Capricorn. So if you are a Capricorn or a Cancer, or you have a lot of planets in Libra or Aries, this new moon is likely to affect you a little bit more strongly. And also just looking at the aspects to it, that Saturn is very close to it, of course. It's only a few degrees away. and that the sun is edging towards Pluto in Capricorn. So that's the transformation that we're really feeling very deeply within us. So just to be aware that those are kind of some of the things that are happening. And of course, Venus is still trine the North Node. It's quincunx Uranus. It's trine Chiron. These are aspects that we've talked about in our blogs over the past week because they've been going on for quite a while. Did I leave anything out of the astrology of it?
I would just say Venus more or less in trine to Chiron, and Venus at the end of Scorpio. And yes. Venus at the end of Scorpio has a, I mean, you talk about letting go. I mean, this is it's advised, but it's not the easiest to do. It may feel a little bit like a purging or something like that. But I think that's the astrology of it. That's what we have to say about it.
And we will see you very soon when we talk about the full moon in January. So see you soon, Armand. And don't forget, everyone, we are in eclipse season. So this is the first of several eclipses. So join us again for the next recording. Bye-bye, everyone.